The moment I realized I was doing it all wrong. I remember the day like it was yesterday. It started like most of my mornings, slow, quiet, and maybe a little too still. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into a half-empty cup of lukewarm coffee, while the sound of a ticking clock filled the silence. At 67, I wasn't in bad health, but I wasn't thriving either. What really struck me that morning wasn't a sudden pain or illness. It was the feeling of fading, as if I had already begun shrinking into the background of life. I had retired a few years earlier, the kids were busy with their own lives, and I realized I had stopped planning, stopped growing, and frankly, stopped truly living. That morning, I glanced out the window and saw my neighbor, Mr. Henley, walking briskly by with his walking stick. He was 82, always smiling, always on the go. It hit me like a brick. He seemed younger than me, despite being 15 years older, and that's when I asked myself the question that started everything. Why does he seem so alive? And I feel so stuck. I had fallen into the retirement trap. After decades of working and raising a family, I had imagined retirement as a time to rest, relax, and take it easy. And for a while it felt good. But eventually, the long hours of sitting, watching TV, and repeating the same routines every day began to dull not just my mind, but my spirit. I didn't even notice it at first. It was subtle. I started skipping walks. I said no more often when friends called. I even stopped reading books and resorted to passive entertainment. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't excited about life either. The strange thing is, one talks about this phase, the slow drifting into mental and physical stagnation. I was moving less, thinking less, feeling less, and it was showing. My energy was low, I wasn't sleeping well, and I felt 10 years older than I actually was. That's when I knew. I had to change something. I had to find what made seniors like Mr. Henley glow with life, and I had to do it fast. The wake-up call, a doctor's words, that stuck a routine checkup, a few weeks later became the second jolt I needed. My doctor looked at me and said, "Your vitals are okay, but I'll be honest, your body's aging faster than it needs to." That line cut deep. I asked him what he meant, and he explained that how we age isn't just about genetics, it's mostly about lifestyle. And in seniors, the biggest predictor of longevity and quality of life isn't money, luck, or even diet. It's engagement. Engaged seniors live longer. The ones who stay mentally, physically, and emotionally active, that's who we see thriving in their 80s and 90s. That word stuck with me. Engaged. Was I engaged with life anymore? Truthfully, I wasn't. I was merely existing. A simple observation that sparked a shift later that week. I made a small but life-changing decision. I sat down with Mr. Henley after his walk. He was cheerful, of course. I asked him what kept him so active, so sharp, and so young. He looked at me, sipped his water, and smiled. "You've got to wake up with a reason, my friend," he said, "and move your body and mind every single day. Even just a little, that's my trick." I laughed. "That's it? That's your secret?" He nodded. "That's it. One simple trick. Stay engaged. Don't sit still too long. In your body or your mind." That conversation changed me. It wasn't some complicated medical plan or life hack. It was simple, so simple that I had overlooked it completely. Why this hit me so hard, I had always assumed that longevity was about avoiding disease or eating kale smoothies. But here was someone living proof that the key might actually be momentum, waking up with purpose, moving just a little, engaging with the world. I realized that I had retired from more than just work. I had retired from living intentionally. That moment, something stirred in me. I wasn't ready to fade. I wanted to feel that fire again, that aliveness I had let slip away. I didn't want to be a statistic. I wanted to be a story. And so, I committed to testing Mr. Henley's advice for just 1 week. That was the beginning of everything. A new mindset was born. I told myself, just move, just engage, every day in some small way. No pressure, no guilt, just consistent, simple, intentional action. In the following days, I'd learn what that meant and how to do it, in ways that felt natural, enjoyable, and sustainable. And what happened next, mentally, physically, and emotionally, was nothing short of a transformation. Up next, that's the story of how I realized I was doing it all wrong, and how one sentence from a neighbor and one comment from a doctor lit a spark in me I didn't know I still had. In the next section, I'll share exactly what the simple trick was that turned everything around for me, what it looks like, why it works, and how it reconnected me with joy, health, and purpose. The simple trick that changed everything. From passive aging to daily engagement, it started small. Honestly, I wasn't even sure if it would make a difference at first. After talking to Mr. Henley and reflecting on my doctor's words, I didn't feel motivated to completely overhaul my life. That sounded overwhelming. I just wanted to test this so-called simple trick and see what would happen. Mr. Henley had made it sound so effortless. Just stay engaged. Move your body. Move your mind. So I asked myself, what's the smallest change I can make today to begin? That first morning, I woke up a bit earlier than usual. I stretched my legs, made myself a cup of tea instead of coffee. I was trying to ease off the caffeine, and stepped outside onto my porch. I just stood there. It was cool, crisp, and quiet. I listened to the birds, watched the wind shift through the trees, and took 10 slow, deep breaths. That was it. And for the first time in a long time, I felt present, awake, alive. It wasn't earth-shattering, but it was real, and more importantly, it was intentional. That was the beginning of my trick. The real secret, micro-engagements. As I continued experimenting, I realized that the trick wasn't just about going for a run or solving puzzles. It was deeper. It was about doing small, purposeful things that keep you engaged with the world, physically, mentally, emotionally, every single day. So, I came up with what I called micro-engagements. These were simple 5 to 15-minute actions that made me feel connected and curious again. Here are a few examples I started with. Morning stretch with music. I'd put on a song from the 70s, stretch my arms, back, and legs while smiling. Yes, smiling was part of it. 1 curiosity a day. I'd pick a topic I didn't know much about and read a short article or watch a video. Walking gratitude practice. While taking a slow walk, I'd name 3 things I was grateful for. Some days it was just sunlight, warm socks, and still being here, call a friend, Wednesdays. Once a week, I'd call an old friend and catch up. No agenda, just connection. These things didn't take hours. They weren't hard work, but they sparked something inside me every single time. Why it worked. The science behind simplicity. After a couple of weeks, I became curious. Why was this working so well? So I started reading up on aging and longevity. And what I found blew me away. Numerous studies back up this simple trick that Mr. Henley had shared. Researchers at Harvard, the Mayo Clinic, and the National Institute on Aging have all shown that consistent low-stress engagement can dramatically slow the effects of aging. Here's what I learned. Mental stimulation delays cognitive decline. Doing small brain activities like learning, reading, or discussing ideas keeps the brain sharp and builds cognitive reserve. Movement boosts longevity hormones. Even light walking releases endorphins and improves cardiovascular health. Seniors who move for just 15 minutes a day reduce their risk of heart disease by up to 30%. Social connection reduces mortality risk. Loneliness is as damaging to our health as smoking. A single heartfelt conversation each week can increase life, satisfaction, and reduce stress hormones. Purpose adds years to life. Having something to look forward to, even if it's small, like a new recipe or a book club, has been linked to lower mortality rates. So it turns out, Mr. Henley wasn't just a wise old man. He was walking, talking, science-backed longevity. My turning point. When I started feeling young. Again. 3 weeks into practicing this trick daily, something subtle but undeniable happened. I started feeling younger. My joints didn't ache as much. I woke up without that dreaded fog. Looked forward to the mornings again. More than that, I felt useful. Like I was building momentum in my life again. One morning, I caught my reflection while brushing my teeth and noticed something new. It wasn't my wrinkles or the silver in my hair. It was the sparkle in my eyes. I hadn't seen that in years. It wasn't vanity. It was vitality. I was slowly becoming the person I used to be, but wiser. The best part? Anyone can do it. What makes this trick so powerful is its simplicity and accessibility. You don't need money, fancy equipment, or a perfect body. You don't need to run marathons or meditate for hours. You just need to engage intentionally every day. Even if you're dealing with physical limitations, there's always something you can do. Can't walk far? Sit on your porch and do chair stretches. Don't feel like reading? Listen to an audiobook? Can't meet in person? Call someone you love. The key is to show up for your life, even if just in tiny steps. My simple daily engagement checklist. Here's the checklist I created and still use. Move my body for 15 minutes. Learn something new. Talk to one person. Smile at myself. Do one thing on purpose, not out of habit. It takes less than an hour a day, and it completely transformed my aging experience. Coming up next, in Docs. The next section, I'll share how I turned this daily trick into an effortless ritual. How I built consistency without burnout, and how it became the highlight of my day rather than a chore. This is where how I turned it into a daily ritual. From one-time efforts to a lasting lifestyle, turning a new habit into a lifestyle is always the hard part, isn't it? When I first started experimenting with this simple, stay engaged trick, it was exciting. The small actions felt new and invigorating. But like with any change, I knew the honeymoon phase wouldn't last. Sooner or later, I'd wake up tired, unmotivated, or just plain lazy. And if I didn't figure out how to make this engagement stick, I'd slip right back into that quiet fog I came from. That's why I made it my mission, not just to start engaging with life, but to make it a ritual, something that became as natural to me as brushing my teeth. And let me tell you, I learned some priceless lessons along the way. The first step, I made it personal. The first thing I realized was this. If I tried to copy someone else's routine, I would fail. I couldn't force myself into Mr. Henley's schedule or follow some influencer's 5 a.m. wake-up call. I had to find my rhythm, something that felt authentic, enjoyable, and, most importantly, sustainable. So I started by asking myself a few questions. What time of day do I feel most alive? What are the small things that bring me joy? What drains me, and what energizes me? With these answers in mind, I built a very gentle, senior-friendly framework, a morning ritual that focused not on productivity or pressure, but presence. Here's what it looked like. My morning engagement ritual. First 60 minutes of the day. Wake up with light and music. 5 minutes. I opened the curtains right away and turned on calming, instrumental music. No phone. No TV. Just light and sound to lift me gently into the day. Stretch and breathe. 10 minutes. I started with deep breathing, just in and out through the nose, and light stretches I learned from a YouTube video for seniors. I didn't aim for athleticism, just movement, gratitude walk or porch time, 15 minutes. If it was nice outside, I walked. If not, I sat on the porch with a blanket and just observed the world. During that time, I'd name a few things I was grateful for, no matter how small. Read or reflect, 15 minutes. I kept a short book or a notebook nearby. Some days I read. Some days I wrote about a memory. It didn't matter. What mattered was thinking and creating. Set one intention, 5 minutes. Before I left the ritual, I'd say, today, I want to. It could be smile more, call an old friend, or try a new soup recipe. Something small but clear. This wasn't a strict routine. Some mornings were shorter, some longer. But doing some version of this ritual every day kept me grounded. It gave me a reason to get up that wasn't based on obligation, but on meaning. The secret ingredient, enjoyment. This might surprise you, but the key to turning something into a ritual isn't discipline, it's delight. Too many of us treat health like a chore. Eat this, avoid that, do this exercise, stay away from that chair. No wonder people give up. But when your actions feel good, your body and mind crave more of them. I started adding tiny elements of joy into my mornings. A favorite mug for tea incense, or a candle during my reading time, classical music that made me feel like I was in a movie. It felt silly at first. But these things elevated the ritual. It went from a checklist to a daily ceremony of honoring myself. And guess what? I stopped dreading the mornings. I started looking forward to them. I let it evolve. Another key to keeping this ritual alive. I didn't let it get stale. After a month or so, I noticed that certain activities felt boring. Instead of forcing them, I replaced them. I learned to rotate my engagement menu. Some days I'd do watercolor painting instead of writing call. A different person each week practiced chair yoga instead of walking. The goal wasn't perfection. The goal was presence. This flexibility allowed the ritual to breathe. And in doing so, I breathed more life into myself. How I handled the off days of course, there were still days when I didn't want to do anything. Days when my back ached, or I felt emotionally drained, or I just wanted to go back to bed. But here's what I promised myself. On those days, I'd still do one thing, however small. Even if it was just sitting by the window with tea and breathing. For 5 minutes. That little act kept the chain unbroken. It reminded me that I could still show up for myself, even when I felt off. This was powerful. Over time, those bad days became less frequent, because I was showing myself grace, not judgment. What changed in my life after 3 months of this ritual, here's what I noticed. My sleep improved. I was falling asleep easier and waking, up feeling rested. My mood stabilized. I wasn't riding the highs and lows. I felt calm. I lost a few pounds, not from dieting, but just from moving more and eating more mindfully. I started saying yes again, to lunches, hobbies, and new friendships. I looked forward to the mornings. That alone felt like a miracle. It wasn't magic. It was momentum. Gentle daily momentum that added up to transformation. A ritual worth protecting. These days, my morning ritual is sacred. Even if I travel or have guests, I make time for it. It doesn't always look the same, but the spirit of it is consistent. Be present. Move gently. Think clearly. Choose joy. Connect to purpose. It's not just a habit. It's a form of self-respect. Coming up next. In the next section, I'll tell you how this simple daily practice rippled into every part of my life. From relationships to confidence to discovering new hobbies in my 70s. You'll see how small daily engagements became a full-blown second act, because once you start lighting that spark inside, it spreads. The ripple effect on my life. How one habit transformed everything. I never imagined something so small could lead to such big change. In the beginning, I just wanted to feel a little more alive. I wanted to shake off the dullness that crept in during my quieter years. But I didn't realize that by simply choosing to engage, even a little, I would set off a chain reaction that touched every corner of my life. This section is about that ripple effect. The ways my relationships, confidence, and even the way I saw the world started to shift. Not because I suddenly became someone different, but because I began living with intention again. Relationships rekindled. You know what happens when you're more present in your own life? You start showing up differently for others, too. Before I started my ritual, I had quietly pulled away from people. It wasn't intentional. I just didn't feel like I had much to offer. I'd let calls go unanswered. I'd pass on invitations. I figured people had their lives, and I didn't want to be a burden. But something changed once I began engaging every day. When I felt mentally sharper, emotionally lighter, and more self-assured, I found myself reaching out again. I called my niece just to chat. I visited my old friend Martha at her assisted living home. I started going to the community center once a week for a seniors coffee group. And guess what? People welcomed me with open arms. Turns out most of them had been waiting for me to come back around. They missed me. They just didn't want to push. The beauty of aging isn't just wisdom, it's connection. But you can't connect if you're hiding away from the world. Reigniting my engagement helped me remember that I'm still someone people want in their lives. Confidence. I didn't know. I still had one of the biggest surprises. My confidence started to come back. When I was younger, I had a certain boldness about me. I'd travel, strike up conversations with strangers, try new things. But as the years passed and my body slowed down, I assumed those parts of me had faded for good. I was wrong. One day during my morning ritual, I wrote in my notebook, "I miss being brave." That sentence stuck with me. So I decided to test myself. Nothing big, just baby steps. I signed up for a senior pottery class. I showed up alone, nervous, wondering if I'd even be able to do it. My hands aren't what they used to be. But something wild happened. As I shaped that first lump of clay, I felt this jolt of pride. It was messy, uneven, but it was mine, and from there, things snowballed. I joined a memoir writing group. I took up light gardening again. I volunteered once a month at a local food drive. Each little victory gave me a boost, and it reminded me that age doesn't erase courage. It just buries it under routine and doubt. But with a little spark, it comes roaring back. Health benefits that surprised even my doctor now. Let's talk about the body. I didn't start this journey to lose weight or lower my blood pressure. I just wanted to feel more awake. But my doctor noticed the difference before I did. At my 6-month checkup, she said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Here's what changed. My blood pressure dropped slightly, not dramatically but noticeably. My joint stiffness decreased, thanks to the light daily stretching. I began sleeping deeper and longer. My mood improved, which also reduced my reliance on certain medications. These weren't radical shifts, but they were meaningful. And best of all, they were sustainable. Because they weren't built on restriction or punishment. They were built on joy, purpose in the second act. The greatest ripple of all? I found my purpose again. When we retire, or when the kids are grown, or when we lose someone close, there's a quiet question that can haunt us. What now? I spent years ignoring that question, trying not to feel its weight. But when I started re-engaging with life, however softly, I began to hear a different question. What's still possible? That shift changed everything. I started teaching my granddaughter how to cook traditional family dishes. I recorded myself reading old stories for her to play at night. I started keeping a journal that I hope will one day become a book for my family, a legacy of memories and lessons. Suddenly, my days weren't just about passing time. They were about creating something, offering something, and feeling needed again. I wasn't just living, I was contributing. And that, my friend, is what keeps the spirit young. Others began noticing. Funny thing about energy, it's contagious. My friends at the community center began asking me what had changed. "You're glowing," one of them said. "You're more alive than ever," said another. At first I shrugged it off, but eventually I began to share the truth. It wasn't a secret diet. It wasn't a fancy supplement. It was a simple daily decision to engage with life, to say yes to curiosity, joy, movement, and connection. That was it. Some of them began trying their own rituals. Others just walked with me in the park once a week, but almost all of them told me the same thing. "I feel like myself again." That's when I knew this wasn't just a personal journey. It was a gift I could pass on. The joy is in the momentum. What's beautiful about the ripple effect is that it creates its own fuel. The more you engage, the more you want to. The more you want to, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you engage. It's a cycle of positive aging. And it all started with one little change. No overhaul, no drastic moves, just a gentle nudge in the right direction, every single day, coming. Up next, in the final section, I'll share the real secret I discovered through this journey. The shift in mindset that made everything possible. Because while the habits and routines helped me move forward, it was a change in how I saw myself and my life that made the difference between just existing and truly living. The mindset shift that made it all possible. How I learned to see aging differently. For most of my life, I saw aging as something that just happens to you. You grow older, your body slows down, people around you change or disappear, and before you know it, you're living in a quieter world than the one you once knew. That was the script I accepted. But something began to change the day I made that one simple decision, to engage again. In this final section, I want to talk about the mindset shift that truly changed everything for me. Because habits, yes, they help, but mindset, that's the engine that keeps the whole thing running, replacing fear with curiosity. For years, I was afraid of what was coming. Every little ache, every new wrinkle, every forgotten name, it all felt like evidence that I was slowly disappearing. I stopped trying new things because I didn't want to look foolish. I avoided unfamiliar places because I didn't want to feel lost. My world shrank out of fear. But when I began engaging with life again, just in tiny, daily ways, something beautiful happened. I got curious again. I started asking questions instead of assuming I was too old or past my prime. I began wondering, what would happen if I tried this new class? What would happen if I changed my routine? And every time I followed that curiosity, I was rewarded. I realized that curiosity is a form of youth, and we can choose it at any age. Shifting from decline to discovery. We've been taught that getting older is about loss, losing youth, energy, people, opportunities. And yes, some of that is true. But what we rarely hear is that aging is also about discovery. I discovered parts of myself I never had time for when I was working full-time or raising kids. I discovered joy in slowing down and seeing the world more clearly. I discovered the power of wisdom, the kind you can only earn through experience. This discovery mindset turned every day into a chance to learn something new. A recipe, a memory, a conversation, a deeper truth. I stopped counting the things I'd lost and started appreciating the richness of what I still had. And that made all the difference. Letting go of perfection. One of the most powerful mindset shifts I made was learning to let go of perfection. I didn't need to be the sharpest or fastest. I didn't need to remember every detail or win every debate. I didn't need to look like I was 50 when I was 75. I only needed to show up as I was. This mindset took away so much pressure. I gave myself permission to move slowly, to ask for help, to laugh at myself. And instead of making me feel small, it made me feel free. When you stop trying to be flawless, you open up room to be human. And being human is where all the joy lives. Seeing myself as a contributor, not a bystander. Here's a hard truth. Many seniors, including myself at one point, start to feel invisible. You walk into a room and no one really sees you. You offer advice and people smile politely but move on. It's like society decided you've had your turn. But I realized I didn't have to accept that story. I started asking myself, what can I still give? What can I still offer? And the answer surprised me. A lot. I could share stories from my past that carried meaning and lessons. I could teach younger folks things they'd never find on Google. I could simply be present, kind, and wise, and trust that that matters. This shift from passive observer to active contributor filled my days with purpose again. I wasn't just passing time. I was leaving a mark. Redefining what it means to live. Before, I thought living meant doing big things, traveling, making money, building something. But now I see it differently. Living means being awake to your life, no matter how big or small your days are. It's sipping tea on the porch and truly tasting it. It's talking to your grandchildren and truly hearing them. It's walking outside and letting the sun warm your face while you feel grateful for another morning. Living isn't measured in milestones. It's measured in moments. And once I made peace with that, I stopped chasing after some better version of life. I started living the one I had, fully, joyfully, and without apology. Why this trick works for so many, you may still be wondering. What exactly is the simple trick? Well, here it is again. Daily intentional engagement. That's it, but it only works if you allow yourself to shift how you see your life. Because even the best habits will fail if you believe you're already too far gone. I had to believe, not blindly but bravely, that it was still possible to grow. Still possible to change. Still possible to live a life that felt rich. When you shift your mindset, everything else follows. You begin treating your body like it matters. You begin speaking with people like your voice matters. You begin living each day like your presence matters. And let me tell you something I now believe with every fiber of my being. It does. A final word from the heart. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a guru. I'm just someone who got tired of waiting for life to feel meaningful. Again, and decided to do something about it. And I want you to know, you can too. Start small. 5 minutes. One habit, one journal entry, one phone call, just one engagement with the world around you. Then do it again tomorrow. Eventually, you won't just feel like you're surviving, you'll feel like you're thriving. Because the truth is, most seniors don't live longer just because of medicine or luck. They live longer because they stay in motion, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And it all starts with this mindset. I'm not done yet.